Today's alright, so we're gonna focus in on linear functions today. So we have to know about slopes, y-intercepts, and how equations of a line work. So we are going to be focusing on a line in this format, y equals mx plus b, which is how we've seen it in our past math classes. So you have to know that this is y is equal to mx. What makes it linear? It's x to the first. M is the slope. Slope is the rise over the run, which is the same thing as saying the change in y. So this little triangle just means change in mathematics. It's just saying it quickly. So it's the change in y over the change in x. Now think about it. If we're figuring out the rise, we're figuring out how much we changed over y. Then when we do the run, we're figuring out how much we changed over x. So it makes sense. And then you can also use this equation if you need. y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. That's an equation we can use to find the slope, given two xy points. And then the plus b part is the y-intercept. Now remember, y-intercepts are always when x equals 0. So if you look at this line right here, aren't we crossing at x equals 0 up 3? Does everybody see? My y-intercept would be over 0 up 3. Does everybody agree? Okay, so then let's figure out the slope for this one. This one's easy. If we have a line that we can see with our eyes, we would figure out the rise over the run. That's one way of doing it. So how much did we rise? Now you do have to look from left to right. So I'm going to start at one random point. It doesn't matter. So I'll just start right here. To get to the next point, I'm rising 1, 2, true? So I'm rising 2, and then I'm going over, running 1, 2, 3. Does everybody see? So our slope is 2/3. Now here's what you would need to check next. Is it a positive slope or negative slope? Are we going uphill or downhill? From left to right. We always look at math from left to right. From left to right, is it a positive line or negative line? Positive. So this slope must be positive. So our equation would be y is equal to 2/3 x, and then our plus b would be plus 3. So we crossed at positive 3. Does everybody understand? Pretty straightforward. Okay, good. All right. So let's look at this one. It says, find the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points. Now here's one rule you need to make sure of always when finding slope, everybody. You have to put it in order from the left point to the right point. So everybody, I'm going to show you right here. Let's say that this is the 2 points. Isn't this one further to the left than this one? So wouldn't this x value be smaller than this x value? It doesn't matter the y value, it matters the x value, because that's what places it from left to right. So let's look at this point. Is it in order from least to greatest on the x? We only look at x. 0, 3. Yes, it's in order from least to greatest. Does everybody see? Or from left to right. Okay, so let's say, okay, this is an xy point, this is an xy point. Now this is our first point, so we just put a little 1 to say this is our first point. The 1 we don't plug in anywhere. That's just saying this is our first point. Then this is our second point. So to find the slope, what we're going to do is the formula for slope. y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Do not make mistakes with negatives or subtracting. So let's look at y2. Cross it out as you go so you don't miss anything. y2 is 12. Cross it out, then minus y. So I put a minus sign. Then y1 is 3. That's the change in y over x2 minus x1. So 3 minus 0. So we've got everything, we've plugged it in now. So 12 minus 3, 12, 11, 10, 9, right? So 9 is on top, and then on bottom we have 3 minus 0, which is 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. So our slope is 3. That's all it asks us to find, is the slope. Okay, let's do another one. So we have an xy point, an xy point. Which one? If you don't look at the y value, which one is the left? Which is the first point? -1. That comes before 3. So call that your first point. Call this your second point. Then same formula, y2, which is -4. Then put a minus sign. Then y1 is 3. All over x2, which is 3. Put a minus sign. Then look. And it's x1, which is -1. When we start getting negatives is when people start making errors. So be very careful. And now we'll simplify. Don't just see a 4 and a 3 and assume it's one. Think. -4 minus 3 more is Negative 7. Now on bottom, 3 minus negative. That means plus a positive. So it's 3 plus 1, which is 4. So this is a negative line, a negative sloped line. Everybody good? So if I was going to graph this, this slope is technically 3 over 1. Our rise would be 3. Our run would be 1. We would be going rise of down 7, right? And then we'd be going right 4. Everybody good? Okay, cool. Next one, it says find the slope of the line that passes through the following points. So given a graph, it's actually quite easy. Let's figure out 2 points, and let's do the rise over the run. You're always going to want to pick whole number points. Now, this is actually not over 5 up 3, it's over 5 up 8. I think my pen just went crazy there. Okay, so we're given this line. Pick 2 points and find the rise, then find the run. So let's see. I don't care what point you use. You could use these 2 points or these 2. Let's just use these 2 since they're given. You could use the formula again, or you could just do rise over run. What do you want to do? Rise over run. So starting here, what's our rise? Up 1, 2, 3, correct? And then our run is 2 units. Is it a positive line? So it stays positive. There's our slope. Okay, let's look at this one. Let's do it the good old-fashioned way, just like we did here. So our rise is down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. So down 8, is that right? It was kind of hard to see from up here. Down 8. Well, don't I need to put a negative? Isn't it a negative slope, everybody? We went down 8. We always go to the right, by the way, always. So now we're going down 8, and then we're going right 2. So that would be negative 4. Are we all with me? Okay, negative 4. Okay, awesome. Now these 2 lines trick people. They don't know the difference, and there is a difference. So let's look at this one. We could use our formula, y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. That always works. Or we can set up rise over run. How much am I rising? 0. So 0's on top. How much am I running? 2 or whatever. It doesn't really matter. What's 0 divided by 2? 0, guys. Not 2. 0 divided by 2 is 0, right? Take a 0, nothing, and then divide it into 2 units. That would be 0, everyone. Do we understand? Okay. So our slope is 0. So that would be m equals 0. So that happens. Let's look at this one. What's our rise? 5-ish? Doesn't really matter. Isn't it rising forever? So we can put 5, sure. What's our run? 0. Can we divide by 0? No, so we can't. This does not have a slope we can use. This is undefined. This line can't exist. It's not a function. So this one we would say undefined. Because the slope is undefined, because we can't divide by 0. It's okay to have 0 on top, not on bottom. This is a slope of 0, so it would be y is equal to 0x, and then our plus b would be plus 3 right here. So it would just be y equals 3. Does everybody understand? This one wouldn't have a line. Okay, cool. Doing good. All right, so it says, find the average rate of change of these 2 points. Fun fact for you, average rate of change means find the slope. Average rate of change means, on average, what's the rate of change? Well, remember, we're doing the change of y over the change in x. The change in x. That is the average rate of change. So it's the same thing as slope. So xy. What's my first point? 2, 5, right? It would come first. So 1, 1, 2, 2. y2 minus y1. So negative 3 minus 5 over x2, which is 7, minus 2. So don't we get a negative 8 on top? And on bottom we would get 5. The average rate of change is just the slope. That's what slope is, the change in y over the change in x. Average is division, so it's all good here. Okay, so now anytime you're asked to write the equation of a line, you're just going to write down what you know, and we know all lines have this format. So this is where I start. I say, okay, what do I know about a line? If I need the equation of a line, my final answer needs to be in this format. Y equals mx plus b. Does everybody agree? That would be what we need to write. So we need our slope and we need plus b. Well, great, but maybe we don't have that information right now. So you'll write down y equals mx plus b, then take everything you do know and plug it in to the correct place. So let's see here. We have a point. So we have a point 1, 2, and then its slope is 3. So it says, write an equation of the line that passes through this point with this given slope. So first of all, don't we have an xy point, like I just said? And we have a slope, so isn't this m? So let's plug in everything we know. What's y? 2. Does everybody agree? What is m? 3. What's x? 1. And then we have plus b. We know nothing about plus b, correct? But now we can solve for b. Look, that's the only unknown. So we have 2 is equal to 3 plus b. Get b alone. Minus 3, you're awesome. Negative 1 equals b. So now we can go back up and say, okay, so my final answer is going to be y is equal to, my slope is, so we'll have a 3x, and then our b was negative 1, so minus 1. Does that make sense, everybody? Write down y equals mx plus b and plug in everything you know. So let's look at this one. It says x1, y1 is 3, negative 4, and our slope is a third. Isn't that just a different way of giving us the same information as the last problem? Yeah, because it doesn't matter if it's the first point. If it's crossing through that point, great. So this is an xy point. Great, let's plug it in. So y equals mx plus b. What's y? Our slope is 1/3. Our x is 3. And then we have a plus b, which we don't know what plus b is. Solve for it. So we have negative 4 is equal to, how do we multiply fractions? Straight across. So we have 3 over 3 plus b. So then we have negative 4 is equal to 1 plus b. So we'll subtract 1. Negative 5 equals b. So now we're almost there. We have a y is equal to, what was our slope? 1/3 x, and then we had a b of minus 5. Are we good with that? Plug and chug. That's really all it is. Okay, so now let's answer this one. Find the equation of the line that passes through these 2 points. So first of all, we have an xy point and xy point. We don't know what the slope is, do we? But we can find out real quick. So let's say, okay, we have y is equal to mx plus b. We need the slope for sure, but we can find the slope. Now careful, in this one, which is actually our first point? Negative 3 is 7. Does everybody see why? Because that would come before 1, 3. If we were to graph it, that would be the first point we see from left to right. So we would say 1, 1, 2, 2. So let's hurry and find m. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 is 3 minus y1 is 7 all over x2, which is 1 minus x1. So minus negative 3. We can't make errors on subtracting negatives. Little errors add up. So on top, don't we get negative 4? On bottom, we get 4, which is, so now we can say, okay, so we know m is equal to negative 1. So let's plug in everything we know. Don't we know some xy points we could plug in? Either one will work. They're both points that this line is crossing through. Pick one point to use. It doesn't matter which one. They're both xy points on the graph. So I'm going to just pick this one because there's no negatives. Does everybody see? So this is my xy point I'm choosing. So let's plug in what we know. We know y is 3. We know our slope is negative 1. We know x is 1. And we don't have any idea what the y-intercept is. But now we can solve. So we have 3 is equal to negative 1 plus b. So add 1 over, right? 4 is equal to b. So let's plug in what we know. We know y is equal to, what's our slope? Negative 1x, so I'm going to write negative x, and then our b was plus 4. Now how could you check your answer? You could graph that line on a xy chart, and you should have all those points on it. Your y-intercept should be at plus 4, at positive 4, and your slope should be down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. Does everybody understand? Okay. Cool. We're doing good. Okay, same idea here. So now that you've seen one, maybe you just can watch and we can go quick. So we'd say, and there's a reason I'm doing it again. xy, xy. We need to write the equation. Y equals mx plus b. So what's our slope? Well, let's hurry and find that out. y2, well, which one? Let's see. Oh, which point is this? It's our second point, because negative 4 comes before 2 from left to right. So this is actually our first point. Okay, y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus 1. So what's 4 minus 4? 0 over 6, which is? So we have m equals 0. So we actually have, now we can plug in everything we know. Our y value is, which point do you want to use? It doesn't matter. 2, 4. So our y value is 4. So 4 is equal to, our slope is 0, our x is 2, and then plus b. Isn't that 4 is equal to 0 plus b? So b is equal to 4. So now plug in what we know. Y is equal to 0x, since our slope was 0, and then plus 4. Do we need to write 0 times x? Nope. So then we'd say, okay, so y is equal to just 4. Sweet. Doing good. Okay, watching this one, same thing. You'd say, okay, x, y. What's our first point? Either or, though, really, right? Either or. Aren't they both at -3? So it doesn't really matter. So y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So on top we get -4, on bottom, don't we get? Can we divide by 0? No, so there is no line. This is undefined. Undefined slope, so you can't have a line with those points. They'd be on top of each other. Okay, cool. Which, remember, by definition means it's not a function. Okay. Okay, now it says write in slope-intercept form. This is standard form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So let's get y alone. So what would I do first? Minus 3x, true? Now what I'm going to write is -2y is equal to, I want to put it in mx plus b form. So looking at this, isn't this mx? Isn't this b? So let's make sure you keep your signs correct. It was -3x, so put -3x, and it was +7, so +7. Now solve for y. What would we do next? Divide by -2. So we have y is equal to. Now as long as you divide both of the top by -2, you're okay to split it up. We want to split it up because mx plus b would be split up. So -3 divided by -2 is +3 over 2. Does everybody understand that? So we have 3 over 2x, and then +7 divided by -2 would be -7/2. mx plus b. Okay, sweet. So now it asks us, now that you have it in slope-intercept form, what's the slope? So I'm going to put an S for slope. Our slope is +3/2, and then it wants to know your y-intercept. So our y-intercept is -7/2. Awesome. Let's do this one up here. So get it in y equals mx plus b form. So what would I do? Subtract 7x. Good. And we have 3y equals -7x, right? Then divide by 3. So we have y is equal to -7/3 x, and then we have nothing, right? Plus 0, technically, if we want to be technical. Okay, awesome. So our slope is -7/3. Our y-intercept is 0. So if you were to graph this, you would start at 0, right? And then you go down 7 over 3, down 7 over 3. Okay, cool. And then with this one, isn't it already in slope-intercept form? So then our slope would be -7, and our y-intercept would be 0. Now, if on a test, we probably should be really writing the y-intercept as x, y points technically. So our y-intercept was over 0, right? Then negative, because y-intercept is when x equals 0. So if we were being really technical, it'd be 0, -7/2. 0, 0. This one would have been 0, 0. Okay, cool. Doing good. Really good. Hey, we're almost done with the lesson. There's only 2 more examples. So, we have to be able to use real-world problems to answer the question here. Now, luckily, it's actually not too bad because it makes sense. Like, it's very realistic. So it says, the enrollment for a school has been increasing at a constant rate for the past 8 years. In 1990, the number of students was 203. In year 2000, the school now had 278 students. An administrator wants a prediction of what they can expect enrollment to be in year 2008 if it continues at the same pattern. So I'm going to have some x, y points, and I'm going to write them down. So you might want to take note here. This is how you do it. Because it does have one little thing that we want to consider. So our x value would be in 1990. Our y value would be there was 203 students. In year 2000, there was now 278 students. Now it wants to know, in year 2008, so that's going to be right here, in year 2008, how many students if it continues in this same pattern. Now we could go about it the exact same way we've been going about all the other problems, which is great. We can do that. Or we can also think of it in a little bit easier way. So now, here's what I want to do. It's going to be a lot easier. So we don't know. We could go back and figure out back in time, right? We could go backwards based on the fact of what we know. Or we could say, okay, let's call this our first point, our 0. Let's call this 0. Because we have to know where to start. Does that make sense? Otherwise, we're going to have to go to the starting point. We're going to have to go backwards. Because what's our x value? I mean, what's our y-intercept when x equals 0? So let's just call this our 0. So I'm making a new xy chart here. We're going to call this 0, the 0th year, or the starting point. Let's just start with 1990. We had 203 students. So now if this is 0, this is 0. How many years after 1990 is 2000? 10. So now we'll call this 10, 278. And then 2008 would be year what? From 1990, if this is 0, how many years after? If this is 10, then 8 more, so that'd be 18. We don't know. That just makes our y-intercept a lot easier to find. You'll get the same answer the other way, but you would have had to go back and then plug in all this stuff and figure out when x equals 0. If we just make this our 0, we're going to be good. So we know that lines have this form. Y equals mx plus b. Let's find out. Our slope is, well, we got to hurry and find it. So remember, this is an xy point. Xy, xy. This would be our first point. This would be our second point. So y2 minus y1. So 278 minus 203. All over x2, which is 10, minus x1, which is 0. So somebody, if you don't mind, grab your calculator for me. Everybody real quick. Don't wait for everybody else to do it. Take this minus this and tell me what it is. And then obviously on bottom it's a 10. 75 over 10. Okay, great. So now we can plug that in. Now, we could go through the process of doing the same thing. We could plug in any xy point, right? But what do I already know? Isn't this our y-intercept? When x equals 0, we're starting up at 203 students. Does everybody see? So our plus b is going to calculate to be 203, no matter what. We could do the whole math, or we could just think about it. So we have y is equal to, our slope is 75 over 10, x, and then our plus b would be plus 203. So now that we have this equation, we can calculate any year. So let's plug in 18, because it wants to know, in year 2008, which is our 18 years after we started, how many students can we predict? So where would we plug in 18? It's an x value. So somebody grab your calculator. This is how you should use it with your doinky little crappy calculator. Because you don't have math enter, and you got to type it in better. So what you would type in is 75 times by 18. Hit enter. Then divide it by 10. Then add 203. So 338 students if it continues at this same rate of change. 338 would be our answer. So with story problems, I always make the first thing they gave me the 0, because then that's the y-intercept. It'll come out the same if you had to go backwards and find when x equals 0. It just is a lot bigger math, a lot more math. So let's look at one more. According to the National Health Administration, the average birth weight of babies born to a 22-year-old is 3,280 grams. I wish I just did, we don't do grams in the United States, but whatever. We do pounds. The average birth weight of a baby born to mothers who are 32 years old are 3,370 grams. Suppose the relation is linear. So let's set up what we have. So x, y. So 22, comma, 3280. 32, comma, 3370. Okay, but we're not going to call this 22. We're going to call this our 0. So I'm going to make a new xy chart. I'm going to choose to start here. So I'm going to call that my 0. So 0, 3280. And then we have 22, if that's 0, what would this be? 10, and then that would be 3, 3, 7, 0. Okay, so to write the linear equation, we need to do y equals mx plus b. Let's find our slope. This is an xy point. xy, xy. This is our first point. This is our second point. y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So that'd be 10 minus 0. So somebody calculate the top. I believe it's 90. So we have 90 divided by 10, which is 9. So our slope is 9. So we have y is equal to 9x. What's plus b? Y-intercept is when x equals 0. So 3,280, right? So plus 3,280. Okay, we've done part A. Now B, it says predict the weight of birth for a mother who is 30 years old. You can't plug in 30. We're not using these years, we're using this. So 30, where is that? It's located in here, isn't it? So if 22s are 0, how many years after that is 30? 8. We want to know that. So plug in 8. So where do you go? 9 times 8 plus 3,280. For the video. What'd you get? Okay, that's how much grams we can expect. Now it says, interpret the slope of this problem. Slope is the average rate of change, right? Slope is the average rate of change. So you'd say the average change of birth weight. Interpret the slope. The average change of birth weight. Now D, it says, if a baby weighs 3,310 grams, how old would you expect the mom to be? So where would we plug in the 3,310? The y, right? So we would have 3,310 equals 9x plus 3,280. So now solve for x. We'd subtract 3,280 and then we would divide by 9. Does everybody understand that? Okay, cool. I won't continue that. We're good? So we know how to do algebra? Okay, awesome. The rest of the time is yours. You should be able to really finish 3.2 in class today, honestly.